Okay. All right. There may be an am I on? All right. That was a false start. Okay, here we go. I'd like to call to order the 2024 Forest Grove School District Board of Directors meeting at 5:32 p.m. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with roll call of board members present. Val, here. Brad, here. Mark, here. Kate, here. And Paula, here. And I am here, Christy. And if we can, rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to acknowledge a change in process from previous board meetings in regards to introductions. We will actually not be introducing each individual audience member at this time. We will be scheduling opportunities throughout the year for the public to come and meet our board and have a more lengthy interaction time. And so I'd like to move on to item 4, approval of tonight's agenda.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right. And we're on to superintendent report with Dr. West.
Great, thank you. My mic is not working, I don't think, so I'm going to use my teacher voice. Are you all able to hear me all right? Great. So we are in the second day of the second week of the school year, and that's pretty exciting. It's been a smooth start to the school year. We've had normal kind of hiccups that you would expect when the school year starts. We have 2 very full lunches at the high school. I was there for that. I think some of our students had 2 lunches for the first 8 days of the school year. But that happens every single year, and that's okay. They sorted that out by Friday. I've had an opportunity to be in every single school environment, and it's been a joy to see our students and our staff engaged once again. I was at Neil Armstrong Middle School. Congresswoman Bellinici had an opportunity to visit. She went to the 8th grade leadership class and shared what it's like to be a congresswoman and some pretty neat things about her role and her interactions with some people in Washington. And then students had an opportunity to ask questions, and they asked the kind of questions you would expect, like, have you had an opportunity to talk to Barack Obama? So that was a ton of fun. I've been in kindergarten classes and had a joyful experience with a little one who was cutting out shapes and realizing if you cut a square just right, you get 2 triangles. Made a mistake that was devastating for a minute until the student realized, well, wait a minute, I just made a circle. And to see the excitement and joy around learning that takes place in our classroom, even when there are mistakes that are made, it's wonderful. It's why we do this work. And from the very first day of school, kids and staff, they were at it. They were right into it. A couple other things I think that indicate the strong start to the school year. As you know, we use acts and chants. And visiting today with Christina, who is one of our TOSAs that supports those programs. She said already she has 38 staff from around the district that has asked her to come into their classroom spaces to coach, provide one-on-one coaching to improve their skills in classroom management and support. So that's a program that's really taking off for us, which is exciting. And of course, the start of the school year means the start of athletics. And we've already had several matches and several games. The football team of the high school had a great showing for their first game last Friday. That was exciting. So everything's underway, running smoothly for the start of the school year. We're excited about that. just a couple of calendar things. We do have the bond oversight meeting tomorrow. If anybody is interested in joining us for that, you're very welcome to do so. Please come along. We also have a visit coming up in the next couple of weeks with one of the groups that funds our preschool, familiar elementary school. So I'm stepping out some invitations to that. We're going to do a little bit of an open house there and share how the program is doing and what kind of early results there. So you'll be getting an invitation for that soon as well. We're excited to open up our school for that. That's it for me.
Okay. We do have Forest Grove Education Association here tonight with some comments next on the agenda. Diana, welcome. No microphone. Well. Oh, that's fine. The Al will hear you.
I'll speak louder.
So,
Hello. So I'm Diana Smith with the FGEA, and this is Hillary Barassa. And so I'm just going to provide you with a little bit of background information that is from our FGEA contract. This is Article 6.5 regarding class size. And I'm just going to read it verbatim, just so that you have the information and you know what we're referencing. It says, the board shall make every effort in good faith to prevent excessive class enrollments by equalizing the class loads within the school, by transferring students to another school, or by adjusting student schedules. The superintendent or designee shall meet with the association president on or before October 15th to review class sizes and other class size related information. The district will present disaggregated numbers when sharing this data. Special attention will be given to special educators in relation to the numbers and severity of their caseloads. Special attention will also be given to the number of special needs students, including 504s and ESL students placed in regular classrooms. As needed, a committee shall be formed with representatives from the association and the district to recommend class size and caseload guidelines. The committee will also present recommendations for class size and caseload relief. And then I'll hand it off to Hillary now, and she'll talk from a more personal perspective.
Hello, okay. Good afternoon. On behalf of the FGA, I do want to thank you for being a school board that does monitor and pay attention to class sizes and caseloads, especially for classroom teachers, sped facilitators, and speech and language pathologists. Kind of like what she referenced at the beginning of the year is a good time to double check those, as we definitely do have some bubbles of large classes and caseloads around the district. It's also helpful to see actual numbers and not just averages of students to adults at schools, as that sometimes doesn't give a clear picture. And then we also just wanted to add on our end, when someone comes to us with concerns, the first thing that we as an organization do is spend time investigating and looking into, is this a one-person problem? Is this many people problem? And we gather data to inform what we're hearing, and then we always come right to the table and try to problem solve with district leadership. So thank you. Any questions, comments? I tried to run away last time, so I'm going to give you time.
From the board?
No.
Thank you for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
All right, unscheduled public appearance. The board appreciates community members sharing information during public comments. Public comments will be made in person or submitted through the designated form on the webpage to be read by district staff or registered Zoom participants who indicated through the form they wanted to provide their comment live. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, as is the protocol for board meetings. Public criticism or complaints about school district personnel are not allowed at this time. Stephanie, do we have any more comments?
So we have Diana Smith regarding dress code.
Hi, Diana.
Hi, so I need to let everyone know that I'm just here speaking for myself. And it's just based on my observation. So I'm not looking for a fix or not looking to make a change. It's just a wondering that I had at the beginning of the school year. And it is regarding the dress code. And, so at first I was a little bit taken aback, like, oh, I see how students dress when they come into school. And now I'm used to it. But I also have to admit that when my daughter was in high school in 2012, she asked me, she's like, Mom, do you think my skirt's too short? And I said, no, you look great. She went to school, she got sent home. So, you know, I've been on both ends. But I do wonder, because if we are getting our high school students ready for college, ready for jobs, you know, is that something we need to think about? I'm just wondering. And then we have our circle up question, and that was a question I asked the students, and what do you think? And it was 50-50. Some students thought, no, it's fine, it doesn't affect anything, so there's no disruption, we're good. And some students thought, no, we should really be just looking at our academics, and people shouldn't be looking at us and talking about the way we look on a personal level. But I just wondered, and then someone brought some information to me, and I don't have it with me in front, but I believe it said that the dress code is at the discretionary opinion, wasn't sure if it was the board or the school, not sure. But he had to search for that. So, like I said, it was just an observation, and, you know, I realize it's 2024. But, you know, I went to school, we showed that much skin, but now we're seeing this much, and it doesn't make a difference. You know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And I just wanted to just point it out, and that's it. Any questions? And yeah, so I personally, I love short skirts, but there's a place for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine, non-controversial items to be voted on under one motion. Are there any items within the consent agenda a board member or the superintendent wishes to discuss separately? Seeing none. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Well, actually, I do have a question.
Okay,
It's
it's the wait time.
yeah,
Like,
well,
yes.
yeah,
No, that's good.
let's try to process this. On the personnel part, we have new hires, temporary hires, resignations, and retirement. I guess I'm wondering why the retirements are listed as August 31st. It just seems like when somebody normally retires, they retire at the end of the school year, not at the beginning of the school year. So could you give me some insight into that?
Yeah, we had two individuals that retired on August 31st, and they'll be working back from September 1st to June 30th.
Okay, did we open up that position? When they retired, our policy is that we're supposed to reopen that position to hire. That's right, Mark? Is that how you understand?
We've done it now.
And I think we made a policy on that. So I just kind of feel like that we should still follow that policy.
That's fair. I think we need to look at that. When I read it, it said that the position would be open up after the year they retired. So it does allow for a 1-year work back and then to open up the policy or open up the position. And that is a practice. I checked. That is the practice of the district. We've done that for other individuals.
It just seems to me like it's kind of a way to get around having to reapply for the job.
So that has, oh, go ahead, Mark. Well, so I think, if I'm correct, that the contracts are reviewed and approved in like March. So everybody who wants to stay and hasn't retired yet can say in March, I want to stay, and they can continue on. And then I think after that date, folks can make a decision to retire whenever they want. And so I think that's, I mean, not knowing anything more, I think that's what's happened here. However, I think Val brings up a good point, which is that in the past, we've, and maybe it's for retirements that were announced in October, I don't know, Brad, and then we posted it, I don't know, but maybe you have more.
Well, as soon as they changed the law about being able to work back that period of time, that's when we came back and added that having to apply for the position on a yearly basis. So the timing might be
Right.
interesting. The timing's interesting. It would be a lot more, it'd be easier for us if they would retire or make a decision earlier, but I understand the late. I think that's probably a good idea, at least so we're real clear about.
Yeah, because yeah, I feel like we made the policy because we didn't want this just to happen. We didn't want it where you get to retire and then say, oh, I'm just gonna keep my same job. Like if you're choosing to retire, then you should reapply, the position should be open, we should get the candidates in. And by waiting to do it like this, I feel like they're forcing our hand to say, no, you're just gonna rehire us, and I don't think that's right.
We'll bring the policy back in a couple of weeks so we can take a look at it, and make sure that the language says what you want it to reflect.
I think that's a good idea.
It's currently written, there's a section in there that says the superintendent may allow someone to work back for a year without reopening the position. So we need to look at that and make sure that it reflects what you're asking for.
I think that was earlier practice. We just probably didn't see that piece when we had this discussion the last time.
Yeah, I think Val raises a good point, because when you see retired the 31st and then hired on the 1st, that, and then I guess at the same time, maybe we could look at the transfer process and make sure those are aligned so that there are positions open, and when we open it, what does that process look like in the district with people who might want to, maybe that's a time to maybe look at both.
I don't know that those are two different things, so this is
Yeah.
more about, I think the intent here was that when we have a retirement like this and they want to do a work back, that we open the position and we hire the best person for the position. Now, if the best person is the person that was currently in that position and retired, then fine, but on a yearly basis, we would revisit it. And make the decision.
And that has happened. I mean,
Yeah.
people have retired and then we've opened the position and they've still been the best candidate and we've hired them back. But we've just,
More than once.
yes, but we've gone through the process. And by retiring like this and then getting hired back the very next day, we're not even able to do that process. And I feel like our hand is being forced, and I don't really like it. I don't even, have we given these people contracts? Like, I would want to pull these things off of this consent agenda, personally.
Okay, I will need to investigate what that means for these employees then, if we are not going to move this forward.
I mean, I just, to wait till the 31st
I don't
and
know.
then get temporarily hired back for a full year, I don't see why we can't just say, you could come back and you could sub and we're gonna open the position and look for candidates.
I guess the question I have, maybe that's when their retirement letters were submitted, I don't know. But maybe they were submitted before that, I don't know, we put that date on.
Do we know when their retirement letters were submitted?
Their retirement letters were submitted, I believe, at the beginning of August, so I can pull those with the
Okay.
exact date, something like that, in August.
I don't know.
Well, I'm wondering if we can have a discussion first and then maybe make a decision. I mean, you could pull it off here.
Well, because I would just worry about approving the consent agenda as this is put forth, because then it's saying that I'm okay with this temporary hire for a full year for these people that just retired and when we did it. I think in our policy, quite frankly, that says that I want to see the policy, because I'm pretty sure we said that all positions have to be reopened.
I think that the intent was that, yes, that we just wanted to make sure, we wanted to open the position and hire the best people, we always do.
Correct.
And maybe the people that retire are the best person for that job, and that's fine. But maybe there's other people out there that we would rather have, and that was the intent of that.
Exactly.
That was the intent.
I mean, we could pull this and then review it and see where we end up and bring it back to the board.
Well, those two hires for me.
Right. Well, that's all it would be.
I think what happened is when the legislators went and made that new ruling, that really confused things, but I could be wrong, but I think Karen O'Neill, and she had.
In October, she submitted her resume
Yeah.
in October, and it's the following year that you interviewed. That's
Correct.
That's practice.
Correct.
And in our board policy, we just look at it. It's notify the district as soon as possible.
But
And in our staff.
didn't we have other people apply for her position?
Yes, at the end of the year.
Yeah.
We opened it up like in
And then
March.
Dave,
Yeah.
the best person who could.
Yeah, if I could, I do think this requires greater conversation, and we can bring this back in 2 weeks. If I could just read from policies GCPC. All requests for continued employment must be submitted in writing to the superintendent. And then it says an employee requesting such continued employment shall not be required to submit to established district application and interview procedures. Within 30 days of the request, the superintendent will provide notice to the employee as to whether the request to be rehired is approved. If not, the employee may withdraw their retirement notice. So if that is not what we want the policy to say, we need to change the policy.
I don't feel like that's what our policy said, Mark. Is there an updated policy?
I think we're gonna have to look at this.
Yeah.
That's probably the best thing to do. Because I don't doubt what you've read, but it just doesn't seem like what we've done. So I'm not quite sure what,
What's the last thing?
2020. And then there's some additional information that goes on to say employees who retire during the school year and are selected for continued employment will not serve past June 30th. So there's a 1-year timeline put on this. And they're issued a temporary contract for the duration of this school year, and there's no guarantee of employment beyond June 30th. It sounds like we need to review it. But as for the consent agenda, how do you want to proceed, knowing what the policy says?
Well, go ahead.
Personally, I would still like to pull those, and I'd like to have a discussion about if we open up those positions and try just to make it fair and say, you know, if we're posting a position, they could be a permanent sub, or they could be a sub until we find that, they can apply for the position. I don't know, I mean,
Can we pull just the temporary hire section and just pull the whole personnel section?
No, we
Just the retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
it's that section.
well, even it wouldn't even be the retirement, it would be the temporary hire at very prolonged period.
Oh, yeah.
Or the two.
Do you have that note?
I guess,
I don't know what you guys think, that's just.
well, I guess it would be to look again, the policy. I mean, we have to go by the policy. And I guess we're probably sounding a little bit confused because we did this. I mean, if I can point out, Karen, that was a year or two ago. It's all, I believe, maybe 3, John, I can't remember, 3 years, 4 years? Okay. And so I'm not quite sure if we only wrote it for admin or, you know what, okay, all right, okay, all right.
There's been others that.
Oh, okay.
It's the
So-
problem that I'm having, or the confusion that I'm having, is that it's happening this year. And so because it's this year, the policy says that they can just work throughout the year if it's okay with you. Whereas if they would have put in their retirement in March, then they would have had to apply for the following year.
It would have been a different process had they retired during the regular course of the school season.
Okay.
Sounds like we're pulling it, that section, and then doing a review and coming back.
We'll come back with the two minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Think that-
oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, so do you guys want to discuss anymore? I'll take the motion since I confused a little bit.
Okay,
I move that we approve the consent agenda while pulling the retirement of Barry Bradall and Greg Evers and the temporary hire of Barry Bradall and Greg Evers as presented.
Second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on to presentations. We have a very special guest who is going to be a permanent guest with us today as our student rep, Paula. We're welcoming also her family is here. Dad Antonio, and Mom Patricia, and Sister Melissa. Where's she? Where's my? Oh, yeah. And then leadership team is here, but we're gonna go ahead and take the oath and take a picture, and then we'll have Paula talk a little bit about her team and what they're up to this year. So. Thank you.
Don't you come on this side of the table?
Okay. All right. All right, I, Paula Garcia Andrade, will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States.
I, Paola Garcia Andrade, will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
And the state of Oregon, and will discharge the duties of student representative to the Forest Grove School District Board to the best of my ability.
and the state of Oregon and will discharge the duties of student representative to the Forest Grove School District Board to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. The family?
That's enjoyed it.
Okay, all right.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Great, thank you. Okay, 1, 2, 7.
All right, and I asked Paula if she would be interested in talking, I think first a little bit about what brought her into the leadership role, and then if she would introduce her leadership team and I think advisors that are here, and anything else you'd like to share.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Like they said, my name is Paola. I'm this year's ASB president. What drew me to leadership? I don't know, I guess it's just such a great environment to be in. All the students when you're in leadership, you're surrounded by people who are passionate about education, and that's really what drew me into it. So tonight joining me, we have Danny, our interim, and then Belinda, the ASB vice president for this year, James, our HR, and then we have Chase, our money man. He is our treasurer for this year. So it's funny, he's named Chase, like Chase Bank. I don't know. It was meant to be for him. And then also I have my amazing advisors, Mr. Kirkman and Mr. Toker, who also joined me, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, leadership and advisors, for coming tonight. We're excited to have another strong student voice following in the footsteps of Nate. And we look forward to hearing at our next meeting about what's been going on at the high school. We also encourage, Nate was not shy about speaking his mind, and so we want you to feel like you're a part of all the conversations, and you can ask questions and make comments anytime, and hopefully lots of the time. So yeah, thank you for your leadership. All right, where are we? Okay, we are on to the second presentation, which is going to be about the superintendent evaluation process. We're going to hear a presentation from Dr. West first about some research that's been done, and then have hopefully a really robust conversation on the board about where we'd like to take this.
Yeah, thank you. As you know, it's required that the superintendent goals be brought into the boardroom and a conversation about those we have, and then publicly accept those goals. That applies to the evaluation criteria as well. Goals can be one of them. So tonight I'm presenting to you some information about evaluation in general and then a recommendation for next steps. So to start with, go back. I think we all know this, that selecting and evaluating the superintendent is one of the most important responsibilities. The first part, of course, is selecting. We all know that the hire matters quite a bit in any role. But then providing constructive, specific, and actionable feedback is a part of developing as a leader. So the evaluation process is an important part of ensuring that the district goals are met and that the superintendent continues to fulfill what the board hopes for. Did a little bit of research. There's a manual that was developed in collaboration with OSBA and COSA. COSA is the Coalition of Oregon School Administrators, and OSBA, you're all familiar with it. That manual identifies the criteria for a high quality evaluation as what you see up there on this slide. Essentially, the evaluation process helps us develop stronger relationships. It clarifies expectations. It identifies development opportunities for a superintendent. It's a mechanism for public accountability. And then, of course, it provides input and feedback to the superintendent to guide continuous improvement. Objectives to take into consideration when designing an evaluation process include policies. So, for example, we have a policy that outlines what the superintendent responsibilities are, and that should be part of the evaluation process. There's language in the contract regarding the evaluation that should be considered. There are standards, which are one of the copies that you have in front of you from OSBA. That's what this district has traditionally used. Goals, which we need to talk about and identify. And then articles of evidence collected throughout the entire evaluation. The articles of evidence should not be collected just at the end of the year to summarize how the year is gone. This should be a robust and rigorous process that takes place throughout the entire school year, where as goals are being worked on, evidence of that is being brought into conversation with the school board here in this environment. And then the last evaluation article that can be taken into consideration is targeted feedback surveys. Both COSA and OSBA identify that as an optional part of the process. In conversation with our board chair, we became curious about what other districts are doing with their evaluation processes. So with Bethany's help over here, we contacted several districts, and Chair Kotke made some contacts as well that inform this. We can see the districts that we talked to up there to find out what are other districts doing with their superintendent in general, but especially if they have a new superintendent. So for example, Tiger Tualatin is a school district that has a new superintendent right now. So we were curious, what does that look like for them? What we generally found, and these are themes that emerge, not verbatim conversations, but the themes that emerge is that districts that have a new superintendent are modifying their evaluation process. They're not doing a full evaluation process, whether that be the OSBA process, as you're familiar with, or whether that be a different process that the district has designed. And the rationale for that is so that the superintendent has this first year to grow into the position, realizing that the superintendent probably will not fulfill everything outlined in the full superintendent evaluation in the first year. They also, I believe, to a district are not doing what we have called a 360 evaluation. They may bring survey data into evaluation process, but it's climate and culture survey data. It's other types of surveys that we are doing already as a school district that inform overall performance. It's not a 360 survey. And some of the reasons for that is we heard from districts that they found the responses from the 360 surveys that they had given in the past lacked actionable feedback. So it was difficult to tease out of their specific and actionable steps that a superintendent could take to improve. And they also cited some concern about manipulation of responses that were received. There's another way of putting that is the responses were skewed because the interactions with the superintendent may have been very limiting, or that the questions themselves were confusing and people didn't know how to answer them because they didn't have enough information or the context to answer them appropriately. Before I go any further, I do want to ask Chair Kaki, since you had an opportunity to have some of these conversations, do you want to add anything?
I will. I did connect with Tigard and someone from the Beaverton Council, and then also someone from Yamhill, and those are contacts that I have through OSBA, people that I already know from boards from my work there. And with regards to whether or not they did use any kind of outside agency, Yamhill does not, Tigard does not, and they mentioned, their chair mentioned that that is correct, that they have decided this year to just focus on 2 or 3 domains of the OSBA evaluation piece with their superintendent, focused on very specific goals. And then I spoke to a past chair of Beaverton. She had been on the Beaverton board for 8 years, and it was interesting because while most boards, if they are using something just themselves, they are relying on some version of the OSBA framework, which has been adjusted and has gotten a little bit more specific. But she mentioned that even that was not getting them the particular data. So what she did is her own research around the country and found, she referenced a couple school districts back east who had actually redesigned their own evaluation to make it very specific for what they needed to see. And I thought that was interesting. And she did that work herself with leadership and the superintendent together. The other thing I did ask about with regards to the survey, because I know it's come up, is did they feel without that 360 that they were getting honest and thorough feedback when they did ask? And again, they mentioned 2 things similar to what Dr. West mentioned. Many of the questions as a parent or as even a teacher who might not be interacting directly with the superintendent weren't able to be answered, but by cabinet members, they were finding they could get different information. But they felt like when they did get information in their district, a couple of them kind of laughed when I said, did you feel like you could get real feedback? And they said, oh yeah, no, we definitely got plenty of, very real feedback. So they felt like how they already collected data in the district was giving them a pretty well-rounded feel. And so those were the 3 in particular that I talked with.
Great, thank you. So after doing a little bit of research and comparing the different documents that you have there, point out what you have in front of you. The yellow is the evaluation standards themselves, which you're very familiar with. The green are the survey questions that have been used in the past. The pink comes from that same collaborative OSBA closed manual. This document outlines different ways that evidence can be collected to demonstrate progress towards goals and identify the standards. And then the purple color is a proposed timeline for the process. So I put this in the board folder tonight because my recommendation is that given what we've learned and what we've shared so far, that we move this conversation into the board work session so that we have an opportunity to we have an opportunity to create 3 to 5 high leverage goals for the year, that we agree what these goals look like, that we agree on evidence of progress towards or achievement of these goals, And then we agree on what it's going to look like for you to receive regular progress reports on the progress towards those goals. Some of those reports might be included as a superintendent report. They could be written reports included in the board packet. Some reports may be expanded and shared as a presentation, depending on what the goal is and progress towards the goals. So there's different ways to bring information to the school board throughout the year. We can have a conversation around what that looks like. And then the evaluation is based on progress towards goals, evidence of progress, and an evaluation of performance relative to standards. If we go in this direction, we need time to have a meaningful conversation around what do I need to focus on? What are those goals? And what will it look like to make progress? So my recommendation is we move this conversation 2 weeks out to the work session and make this the focus of the work session.
I agree.
Very supportive.
Yeah.
Sure, Dr. Keith, would you like to open it up for?
Sure, well, I think I'd just like to hear from each board member. It feels like we do have potential consensus as a board to do what we just said here. It also feels like there is possible consensus that we do need to do some adjusting and of what that process looks like with regards to even mostly the artifacts of evidence, I would say for me, besides what we've used in the past. And again, I wasn't here to do the last survey. I did see the results. That's when I dropped on the board. So I didn't go through the process before. But I kind of just like to hear from each board member what you're thinking with that in particular. And then really, what is the outcome? I don't know if we've mentioned this as a board, but what is the outcome we hope for from an evaluation process?
Yeah, well, I'll start. You know, we started this process, I want to say 6 years ago with Collegium. And we wanted an outside, party to evaluate. And it was the first time that Correggio had ever done a school before. And, you know, that's 6 years ago. And as we have evolved, there's some community, the teachers and also the parents in the community, they could not adequately answer the questions because they didn't have the knowledge to do so. And so it sort of negated their input. When we did the climate survey, we had more parents and teachers participating than we did with video. And so I think personally, it's timely to look at the process and say, you know, are we getting the outcomes that we need? And can we tweak this so that it's more meaningful? And the data, how are we taking the data? Are we using data to make our decisions, or are we being subjective with what we've seen over the years? So I personally think it's timely to relook at this and tweak it a little bit. You know, so, you know, that's my perspective.
I can say I agree. What I've seen here, we've had some conversations about this. I talked to Wes last week for a monthly meeting. We talked about this, but I just haven't, to be honest, I haven't spent enough time looking at it. So I'm glad we're not making a decision today. I'm glad we have 2 weeks to think about it. What you have up here, I think makes sense. I mean, we talked about it, but now that I look at it again, that makes sense. And so I think that the discussion of the work session is a good thing to do. I have some questions about the timeline. It looks like it's moved up to April 22nd. I don't know, maybe it seems sooner than in the past. So, but that's part of the conversation. So,
Have to be adjusted based
yeah.
on moving this into a work session.
Yeah, it's I mean, doing an evaluation for the superintendent is one of our most important jobs, and so we want to do that well. And if this is a chance to do it differently, and I agree with targeting questions that folks can answer, and maybe we haven't always done that. So that all sounds, it makes sense. But having 2 weeks to think about it, I think is good.
So I would agree with with Kate and Mark. And the only thing, like, when we had our discussion about making sure that all the stakeholders have the opportunity to give input, no matter what the input is, just giving them the opportunity to give that input, I think is important, including teachers, parents, in terms of the artifacts and the data that Kate was talking about. I think that survey has been effective, you know, the first, it was actually 7 years, I think so, but it really, but it does, the teacher group was, and the parent group had some difficulty with those questions for obvious reasons. So, yeah, I support that too.
I agree with what was previously said. When we decided to do the 360 evaluation 7 years ago, that we had a certain need that we all needed, and we wanted to be transparent to the community. And we wanted to bring in somebody from the outside, so it didn't look like we were manipulating any of the information that we received. So at that time, that's why we went with it and why it fit. But things have changed, and now it's time to do something different. And especially with it being your first year, I think we need to look at how we're doing it and really fine tune what our goals for you are gonna be, and not have them be so broad. And just pick a couple, maybe 2 or 3, and go from there. So I think the work session would be great, and looking at it as a whole is a good idea.
I have plenty more, but I think it's all work session discussion. I think as a new board, okay, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead and then I'll jump.
Well, as a new board member, some of the questions I had, even when I did look at the responses, were things like, you know, if we're looking at an element of how well the superintendent can align, you know, vision with strategic plan with action items. And as a board member, if it wasn't, I'm asking the question as if none of us were here and it was a completely different superintendent. I'd like a process in place where we can actually, that can be clearly defined. So more objective, I think Kate spoke to this, because my question was, what would I look at? That wasn't on the 360, or the question on the 360 might be how well people feel like that was being aligned. But my question was always, but based on what? And so, you know, when the board sits down to evaluate, we look at these markers and we have a 1 through 4, that's the OSBA scale, and board members across the state mark 1, 2, 3, or 4. But when you talk to these other boards, they're having the same issues where a 3 looks different for every person. And yes, there's some subjectivity there where you can analyze as a board person how close it was to that 3. But I feel like if you're going into this process and everyone is aware what we're looking for a 3, it's very transparent for the community and everybody involved. And it's similar to when we used to score writing on a writing rubric, and teachers would, on a 1 through 5, you old school teachers remember that. And I would give a 4, and my language arts department would give 3s and 5s. And they would all have their reasons. And finally we said, hey, let's look at some sample papers and agree what is a 4. Now I know that seems, well, but that was essentially, I feel like what we can do here is get to a more specific, clear agreement.
Hopefully.
Well,
Yeah.
Because when you do that in the writing, anybody that's
right,
being
but-
thrown math, what examples, I mean, all kinds of things.
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
Right, well, and the other thing I think about, and I know we've talked about how to make sure we're getting real feedback, and in this district, we have evidence of how internally as a district, we came together to rework the climate and culture survey. So we didn't have Cragio help us with that, right? John had the committee, we had union people on there, Kent was on there, we had principals on there, and we just sat down with the questions and started going through the questions. And what was really powerful there is you had Kent from the classified union saying, you know, these questions, all of these questions aren't worded in a way that my team can really answer or nor understand. It's all this district speak. And so can we change some of these questions to be a little more real? And we did. You had Angela Graves, you know, like wordsmithing down to the, you know, comma here and this, but it changed how the question was perceived so that people could answer. You had Sarah Ogle, thankfully, who, as usual, was very honest about a couple questions that, you know, frankly, this is not the question we need. We need this question. And so
I'm wondering if this might not be the discussion we have at the work session.
well, okay,
So
all right.
I'm just wondering, it might be a better use of our time to have this discussion and then get right into it.
Well, it's, yeah, I'm gonna finish my point here, because there'll be plenty more I have to say about it, because that is I want this board, this is the only chance we get to talk as a board. So before the work session in 2 weeks, I did want to make this point, that I feel like we can do this as a district. We can make these changes together because we've done it. And I just that's what I wanted to get out, so that people could think about it for 2 weeks, because once we leave this meeting, Brad, we don't actually get to talk, and so I want to seed plant some things that maybe we could be thinking about. I mean, and I want to make sure that this is the only time we have to talk, so if we run 10 minutes long because we want to talk about this, I mean, I'm gonna push on that just a little, I'm gonna push back on that just a little bit. So that's my point there. Kate had one more thing.
Yes, I do. I have never liked this timeline. You know, to me, it never has made sense to me. It's,
Shorter.
no, the problem is that we adopted in September. And then in February, we're looking at the evidence and we've got October, November, December, January, February. We got 5 months. Are we locked into this? I mean, are we locked into this? And to me, it would make more sense, especially for a first superintendent, but even when we had Dave, because I just thought there wasn't enough time in the year to implement all of the goals that were there. And so if I get, and I would like us to bring this up in our work session, because I personally think it needs to be talked about, and I would rather wait and see progress like every 2 months or 3 months on your goals, Dr. West. And then like, you know, in June, wrap it up. I mean, OSBA doesn't require us to do this.
I think your contract has dates.
That's correct. May 15th
Yes.
is the deadline, and there's also a statutory deadline in March that you should be aware of regarding contract extension.
Yeah, right.
So there are some hard-coded deadlines. But outside of that, the process is malleable. To your point, Vice Chair, I don't love the mid-year check-in as the only point of conversation about how I'm progressing towards goals. In my perfect world, what we leave with in 2 weeks would be an agreement to have every month some progress brought into the boardroom, so that you can see throughout the scope of the school year what's being worked on and how we're moving towards those goals. And that makes sense.
Or every other meeting.
Yeah, I'd say once a month seems about appropriate for some progress report, and we can work out what that looks like. It may not be progress reports on everything. It may be, here's what we've done towards this goal this month.
Makes sense.
Great. I think we have what we need for the work session then. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to action items, budget development calendar. Eileen, roll on up.
So tonight we have for you the budget development calendar. It's the same one that was presented at the August 27th meeting, except for adjusted with Monday now being Tuesday for the board meetings in February and April. Tonight we would recommend approving a calendar or this calendar for the 25-26 budgets.
Questions? Do I have a motion to approve the proposed 2025-26 budget development calendar as presented? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Declare budget committee vacancies, Eileen.
So this one has 3 different steps to it. In your packet is a proposed vacancy timeline to fill the vacancies on when we would publish, when interviews would be, and when the board would appoint the new budget committee members. We have 2 members that expired last year. And so this season we would be opening up 2 positions plus the alternate position. So tonight we have the proposed budget development calendar, or the budget committee vacancy timeline and process. In the packet is also a copy of the application and a copy of what the news article looked like last year that we would then republish again this year. The one in the packet is adjusted for the new year's
information. So tonight we've been looking for three different things. One, declaring the budget committee vacancies, so declaring the 2 open positions and the 1 alternate. Approving timeline and process, and then finally appointing 2 board members to serve on that interview committee.
Questions? Do I have a motion to declare the budget committee vacancies?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the timeline and process for the 2025-26 budget? Wait, yes, budget committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And do I have a motion to appoint 2 board members to complete candidate interviews?
Well, first we have. to-
Wait, well, we have to come up with the 2 people.
I'll do it for 1 person.
I can do it.
Okay. I make the motion that Valerie Room and Kate Grandusky are on the budget committee interview process team.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, Val and Kate. And for Oregon School Boards Association Board of Directors nomination, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. West.
Great, thank you. So serving on the Oregon School Board Association Board is an excellent opportunity to practice leadership skills and impact issues both at the state and federal level. School board members interested in running for a position with OSBA Board of Directors must be nominated by a member board within their region, such as this one. Nominations require an official board action, and do have a position coming over here. Director Klotzke is interested in running for the open position 15, and she included within the packet her candidate questionnaire. Before I turn this over to Chair Grandusky to run the nomination process, is anyone else interested in running for this?
No, thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Grandusky, I will turn this over to you for the nomination process.
Thank you, Dr. West. I nominate Christy Kotke for the Oregon School Board Association Board of Director position 15. If I have a second.
Second.
Chair Kotke, would you like to make any comments?
Well, I was on the last opening, taking the place of Erica Lopez, I believe, from Hillsborough. And we've hired a new executive director just this week. The retreat's coming up. And we're really starting to build some good alliances with the Tiger Chair in Beaverton and Hillsborough. And so it's been a great collaboration for all of us. I will say that with this nomination, I called around to really ask in our region, like, who else would want to be in this spot? And I think it's really important for it not to be me, maybe after these terms are 2 years. And so I just want to plant that out there for conversations we might be having across the district with people who might be interested, because it's great for the school board itself to have our foot in the door in those conversations, but it's also really important to have different people in leadership, as Pamela and her team will attest to. They all bring something different to the group. So we'll leave it there if there's anyone thinking about it for next time.
Are there any directors that would like to make any remarks? Well, I will. I would just like to say thank you very much for attending OSBA meetings. I know that it's been a little bit challenging over the summer, but I like your leadership skills. I like your commitment, and I really appreciate you representing not only yourself, but the board and the district. So, and I know you do a great job. So thank you for this.
Thanks.
So roll call vote. Do I do that?
I think you.
All right. We'll do a roll call. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Right. But anyway. All right.
I'm happy to vote yes for you, Christy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
We appreciate you doing it. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Okay, future board action items or board discussion tonight. And I don't think it's on but we've added, this is an opportunity for the board to provide input for future board items and discuss and report on any committee meetings. We did add just an indicator of I'm on LPC for OSBA. The district policy committee is Kate and Mark. The financial oversight committee is Mark and Brad. Parks and Rec is Brad. The Forest Grove Economic Development Committee is Brad. And Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, Val and Kate, and then also now on budget. So we wanted to maybe highlight those so that if there were things that came up, we made sure we created space during this time for each group to summarize. So, okay, anything else? Paula, anything? We didn't ask you what's up at the high school. How's the start of the year been? How has it been being in this leadership position?
It's been exciting. I've been really enjoying it. I don't feel like, is it on? It's on, okay. I feel like I can't hear myself. But yeah, no, it's been exciting. I'm really excited to get things going. We have, obviously the very exciting season of homecoming coming up, and that's what's gonna get people really excited. But yeah, it's a really exciting time.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations again. And I think with that,